Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. I am super excited and thrilled today to have Bill Decker on the show. He's a chief marketing officer, chief revenue officer in Layer One blockchain, also a board member at Next Chain Ventures. So, super excited to get into blockchain Web3 and everything exciting going on now and coming down the pike. So, welcome to the show, Bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. Well, maybe we'll kick it off with your origin story. Maybe kind of comic book style, kind of where did you come from, origin wise, business wise, and I'll kind of let you take her from there.
Well, I was thinking of doing a few songs or maybe a sonnet, just get
Perfect.
things going. I've written some haikus when we're offline. Well, there's my beginning. I was a stand-up comic in New York City for a while. Didn't like the odds and went into sales. Um, Sold in Manhattan. I don't know if you've seen some of the Manhattan buildings, the Empire State Building,
Oh
World
yeah,
Trade. I've been thrown out of all of them trying to
perfect.
sell, walking around without a permit, knocking on doors. Um, got into sales for years and then got into marketing. And that's like saying you're into deep and you're into wide. They're two very, very different things. Salespeople and marketing people, they tend to hate each other. They tend to fight a lot. They tend to say, where are the leads? Oh, I got you the leads. How come you can't close business? You know the drill. Grown up, that's a big deal in this industry. This industry is run by people younger than me without a lot of business experience. A lot of them had a good idea and got funding and haven't seen all the business problems that, in my case, a gray beard have seen. My career's taken me all over the world, setting up companies all over the planet. That's very relevant to Web3 blockchain because we are in a global business. We deal with global users. We deal with global teams. So it became very relevant to have that international background. The industry came to me about 8 years ago. I worked for a regulator doing blockchain. I worked for an NFT company and then a layer one blockchain company, both in marketing and in sales.
Very good.
I'm fun at parties.
Oh, that's amazing. So yeah, so blockchain Web3 came to you, and like how'd that come to be, and how did you kind of get your feet wet and start learning blockchain and Web3, and then
Well,
ultimately start marketing and being a chief revenue officer in the
well,
space?
there is a need for people who understand, for lack of a better term, business 101 in blockchain. And a blockchain regulator approached me and said, can you help us? And we met, and for about an hour and a half, they talked about the tech, which was good tech. And I turned after about 90 minutes of listening and said, so how does this help me? What does this do for me? What problem are you solving for me? Why do I want it? Why does anybody want it? Tell me, please, why we would even get involved in marketing this. What's the customer need? I always ask 4 questions. Who's the customer? What's his or her problem? What's our solution? And why is ours different? If you can't answer those 4 questions, go home. Give back the investor money. That's a very key thing to know, really. And when people say, well, those are simple questions, I say, who's your customer? Everybody. No, everybody's not your customer. So my daughter, my mother, me, Kip, you know,
Uh-huh.
Joe Biden. I mean, no, we're not all your customer. And well, we're working with influencers. That's not a customer,
Mm-hmm.
right? Customers pay you. It's a balance sheet entry. The customer has to be your biggest fan, FAN. Finance, do they have the money? Authority, can they make a decision? And need. If those 3 legs of the stool aren't there, that's not a customer. Hey, that's kind of poetic, wasn't it?
That's very good. That's very, very good.
I'm gonna clean myself up after the coffee.
Yeah. How about just as you're looking out at the market, any future trends, opportunities that you're seeing in the Web3 space, or is with your layer one, like that you got problems you guys are trying to solve?
What's going to happen? The biggest problem in the industry is that everyone's selling to the same people.
Mm.
It's all plumbers selling to plumbers. I don't even go to crypto conventions because everyone's trying to sell everyone to the same thing. Move from my layer one to his layer one. Move over there. Use our NFT marketplace, not theirs. Use our infrastructure development kit. Use our software tools, not theirs. Switch. As opposed to let's go after, I don't know, the other 2 billion people that aren't using this. So when I speak, for example, on the industry, I don't speak at crypto shows. I'll speak at National Association of Retailers, auto dealers, BOMA, investment bankers, family office companies, all those kinds of trade shows, as opposed to speaking just to crypto guys. And that's how I break the market down. And if I can digress a little,
Go for it. Yeah.
there are 4 C's in a market. The first C is the committed. We're in it, we know it, we love it, we're staying with it. And that's in any market. I don't care if it's ice cream, blockchain, Web3, right? Electric cars. So everyone seems to be going after that first C, that first committed, we're in, because they don't want to have to teach. Then there's the second C, which is the cynical. This stuff is snake oil, it'll never work, I don't want anything to do with it. That market is there, but it's a very difficult market because the learning curve is so high. You're already walking into the room with a -10,
Sure.
right? Imagine me on a date. Oh, right away, I got to overcome a whole bunch of things, right? Oh, my looks, my personality, my bad jokes. So there's the committed, the cynical, then there's the curious. Okay, we are a large retailer. We need to know something about blockchain. We are a gaming company. We need to know something about Web3. We're interested. That's my market. To me, that's the market to go after. They should be approached, and they're in all kinds of industries and all kinds of places around the world. And then the fourth is the clueless. And then we're going to, let's say, my mom. Completely clueless. She's not against it. She just doesn't know anything about it. And again, you have that same problem. What's the learning curve? How hard am I working? How, to convince her, to show her. So I would break that landscape down. And what you see in our industry, Kip, is people are going after the committed. Everybody wants the committed. I want to move that trader from that platform to this platform. So this is the underlying problem in the industry. The second biggest underlying problem that I see is when I go to these websites, I don't see anything about helping me and with my problem. I mean, I got to tell you, and for those of you out there in viewer land, you might get upset. I don't need to see a picture of the team. That doesn't help my problem. Think of the best website in the world. Think of Amazon. I don't read about Jeff Bezos. I don't hear about his mission. I don't care why he started the company. I don't care about their history. I don't want to see pictures of his wife or his dog. I want batteries. Get me my batteries or not. I know that sounds very New York, but you've got 15 seconds to get me and keep me there. And you're spending a lot of money getting me there. Don't start telling me about the history and we started this and we met at a bar and we decided we can make a better software. And then Joe came along and he brought a truck. I can actually adjudicate all your banking with one click. Oh, really? That's interesting. I can put all your loyalty cards in one place, right? Starbucks, Target, Walmart, electric company. I can put them all. That's interesting. I can make your car smarter. I can tell your car when to drive your car. I can tell you how fast to drive your car. I can save you gas. I can save you maintenance. That's interesting. One company came to me. They said, we do 180,000 transactions per second. And I said, well, that's great because I happen to be NASA. Yeah. Pardon the jokes, but they get worse.
No, this is perfect. So how do you get, or what's been your experience getting, these blockchain experts, that aren't necessarily business people, but just really know the tech? How do you get them focused on the curious? How do you get them to make that shift? Aside from hiring you to go do it.
Well, that's what you have to do. You actually have to hire someone like me to go do it. But, I'll always start with a strategy. And people say, come and market this. I'm like, what's the strategy? And that strategy managing and strategy building exercise often opens up a lot of mental doors, right? When you start asking who the client is, why would they buy this? Why do they care? What are they interested in? What else have they already got? When you start to go that direction, you can start to open the doors. But the fight takes place not in the marketplace, but in those 2 inches inside everybody's brain where they're already dug into a position, where the CTO says we've got to have the best technology in the world. Well, the only one who really cares about that is one who built it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm holding up one of these things. This is an iPhone. It is not the best phone, but it's the best marketed one.
Uh-huh.
The best phone is one you've never seen and never will see because they're still making it better.
Uh-huh.
Does heat maps and, spatial relations and can 3D model your room. And it's, $40,000 and nobody wants it.
Well, I am definitely in the camp of the curious, and I'm fascinated with blockchain and Web3. And I try to go to those blockchain conferences just to learn, but I am totally with you in that, like in our business, I try to go where are the clients, where are the potential partners, not where are all the other recruiting firms and headhunting firms. It's like, where are my family offices? Where are the VCs? Where are the private equity firms?
Right.
The blockchain companies. No,
But
that's,
when you walk into a company, you may walk in saying, oh, we need a marketing director, we need a sales director. But you're really walking in because there's a problem.
mm-hmm.
And it's up to you to figure out what that problem is. We don't have any sales, we need a sales director. That's not necessarily the answer to the problem. That's part of the solution you bring, right? When you take your skills and my skills and add them together, it's like, okay, you don't have any sales. First of all, are you compensating correctly? Do you have something anybody wants? Is there any backup? Are there any tools? Is the company sales focused? Is John doing, I don't know, boiler room cleaning and sales?
Uh-huh.
I always say sales is not a skill, it's a mentality. And salespeople need to be treated a certain way. And they need to be given the room to do what they have to do. And they need to be kind of left alone. The most horrifying thing I've ever seen in business is the mass adoption of the CRM.
Uh-huh.
This is such an awful, awful thing. When I ran a sales force, if you were on it more than 15 minutes a day, I got upset. I've seen sales forces, they're in front of that machine the whole time.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I know Kip. I know everything about him. I know what he had for lunch, and I know what he thinks about his kids. And his dog's name is Wookie, and his wife hates it on Tuesdays. And he has a kite. He drives a BMW. Great. Did you pick up the phone and call him and see if he wants to buy anything? Well, no, I'm going to drip a campaign to him. Well, why don't you pick up the phone? Well, no, we got to do 30 touches. And I come from New York sales,
Uh-huh.
right? Pick up the phone. Go see him. Get on a plane. And I see salespeople 8, 10 hours a day in front of this machine. There's no money on that machine.
Uh-huh.
The money's over at the client's offices. The other great mistake I see is people saying, we're going to market our way into a company, right? We'll Facebook our way into sales. And sales and marketing are different things. Sales is a juncture point.
Uh-huh.
Marketing people only hear no when they ask for a budget. Salespeople hear no all day. And it
Uh-huh.
takes a certain mentality for that. And you sell, Kip.
Yep.
You hear no a lot.
Absolutely.
And hopefully you figure out how to learn from the no, right? And try to sell to the yes. And your personality is kind of not, well, if you're not going to buy it, I'm never going to talk to you again. You
Right.
probably try to keep the door open and stay in touch. So the idea that we're going to hire growth hackers, what does that mean? Where did that term come from? What are you talking about? All of business is growth.
Uh-huh.
And you're going to get all these customers digitally. That may work if you're downloading an app or if you're trying to get someone to trade a token. But if you're trying to play an infrastructure play, if, not a gamer user, but a game infrastructure, if you're trying to say, I want you to take this infrastructure and gamify your company, you're not marketing your way in for that. That's going to be women on planes and in suits.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The fog hat t-shirt just doesn't do it anymore. I did a deal with a large investment bank in Japan, And yes, we were all in suits, right? When we're talking and we're in suits and yes, sir, and coffee and tea and shine shoes and briefcases. And that was just to get in the room. That was part of the play. I still had to convince them that what we had solved their problem. And the only way I could do that is find out what their problem was.
Right.
And that's the focus of sales and marketing. Marketing is kind of one way. I'm broadcasting. Yeah, I can do surveys and polls, but it's really a megaphone
Uh-huh.
as opposed to a salesperson, which is, more picking things up, more magnet.
Sure. Maybe speaking, we touched on a couple times on international, maybe touched a little bit on your experience. What was your experience abroad in business, and how is sales, marketing maybe different in some other markets around the country versus here in the US, especially with blockchain? Or maybe it's the same because it's blockchain and it's
Well,
global.
I lived overseas. I was studying martial arts.
Huh.
Uh, I fought competitively for many years. I also lost competitively for many years.
Which martial art?
Taekwondo and Aikido.
Okay.
Have you heard of Chuck Norris?
I have heard of Chuck Norris.
Yeah, but you never heard of me because he won and I lost. So it was really kind of like that. Uh, so I fought for many, many years, and that took me into Asia to fight and to live there and to try to understand the cultures as best as I could, understand the languages as best as I could. The one thing we know about Chinese culture is the more we know, the more we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
The culture is mystical for a reason. They like it that way. There's no word for yes in this culture. There's no word for no in this culture. The biggest difference is that if you had a continuum and you had relationship on one side and sales on the and task on the other, the whole world is relationship oriented. And we are task oriented. Now, people say, oh, well, that's not true. We have relationships with our customers. Yes, but you get them after one round of golf. So the sales process takes longer overseas because you're really developing a relationship. Now, it's harder to get that business, but once you get it, it's harder to lose it.
Mm.
Now, think of it like a marriage, right? Okay, you didn't just run in and get married. You took a while, you dated, romance, met the parents, put up with the parents, listened to the parents, got yelled at by the parents, was told you weren't a doctor by the parents, had to eat bad food at the parents. But once you're married, okay,
Yes.
you left some clothes on the floor, right? We can fix that. Okay, you said something insensitive and rude. Okay, we can fix that. Oh, you promised to pick up the kids and you didn't do it, right? So it's
Absolutely.
the same kind of thing. When you develop a relationship with an overseas client, you have a relationship, and if someone comes by with a better toy, they'll usually work with you. Hey, Bill, this guy Kip called me. He said he's got a better deal than you. What do we do about it? Because
Mm-hmm.
we're the ones who are like, can you lower your price? Can you give us better service? Are we comparing apples to apples? Well, no, I'm a marketer and he's a headhunter. So no, we're not apples to apples. So that's just a little facetious, but
Right.
the switching cost becomes very, very high to the point where we're going to think it's unethical. Where a
Okay.
Japanese company may say, I got a competitive bid, I'm going to show it to my supplier. We may find that very unethical. But there it's, no, I have the relationship.
Uh-huh.
And that's something very few American companies understand.
Yes.
And, these companies that I talk to, they hire developers overseas. And I ask a question and it stuns them. I say, who does he work for? Well, we're paying him. Okay, you're paying him, but does he work for you? And how do you know that? Right? Or we have a distributor, we have a reseller, we have a VAR.
Uh-huh.
How often are you visiting that VAR? Are you taking that person to dinner? Are you meeting their clients? How are you helping them? Kind of that same thing in the US too. When distribution is won, the deal still isn't done.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm going to set it to music. When distribution is, you have to work with your distributors. Think of getting your bottle of soda pop inside a 7-Eleven. You don't just hand it over and say, good, go sell. You're co-opting their advertising. You're sending
Uh-huh.
detail people over. You're helping them sell. Maybe you put someone in the store once in a while. You're doing all the things you can to help that distributor. And that's just much more severe overseas. Then you add the language and the culture.
Uh-huh.
If you're working in Greece and they don't understand what you're doing, they may not tell you, right? The Chinese won't tell you. They don't want to embarrass you.
Okay.
Hey, Kip, your instructions were completely unclear. I don't know what you want me to do. That's embarrassing to you. It means you don't know how to manage me. So they may never tell you. Well, when will they tell you? Well, when did your wife start to tell you her fears and fantasies? After you had a strong relationship.
Uh-huh.
And then she said, Kip, I really would like to marry a better looking guy. When my wife finally told me the truth, I knew it was over. Just get out.
Uh, how about I mean, I honestly I have no clue what the answer is. Take Asia, for example, or China, Japan. Are they further along in how they think about blockchain and Web3 and adopting it, or is the US, or as you look at other markets around the country, who are like the people that have fully embraced it? They're not curious anymore. They are committed, or who are the most curious? Or maybe that's too broad of a question, but interested in your thoughts on that.
Well, I'd like to break that question into 14 parts, starting with part 12. The Singapore is very aggressive with
Okay,
blockchain. And think of Singapore. It's an island. It's the most densely populated place on Earth. It's 4.5 million people. They can't really build cars and put up farms. They don't have the space. And blockchain, really, you're talking about computers, people in an office, people distributed, maybe a server farm, but that server farm could be anywhere in the world.
sure.
So it makes a lot of sense for them to have an industry like this. And they've got laws that allow it. Dubai is another hot place for blockchain.
Sure.
Dubai, they're saying, okay, we're in the desert, guys. Let's remember where we are. What can we produce here? And how can we lure top talent here? We're not going to get some, brilliant gentleman farmer from Minnesota to come live here. How can we do it? How can we be, forward thinking? El Salvador uses Bitcoin as its official currency.
Uh-huh.
So they're very forward thinking. The problem with El Salvador is the infrastructure play. They can't get internet access. They can't trade in blockchain. It's difficult. The US is really seen so far still as the leader.
Okay.
The EU is trying to compete with us, and they will do a good job. We just passed a law. Biden just signed it a couple of days ago. The crypto community went crazy. The crypto dropped.
Hmm.
I don't know why. I think the law is very reasonable. What companies wanted to do is own crypto and not declare it on their P&L, on their asset sheet.
Uh-huh.
Well, do whatever you want if it's your company, Kip. But if it's Ford Motor Company, I think I have a right as a shareholder to know how much crypto they're holding.
Uh-huh.
So the law basically said you're going to have to disclose that, which is okay. That shouldn't increase or decrease the price of crypto.
Right.
As you know, crypto is a volatile industry, and they're going to
Uh,
react volatilely to anything.
yeah.
Volatility, a real word?
It's close
Erratically.
enough.
Erratically. I'll be making up more words as this call continues.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
We're expanding vocabularies and dictionaries all around the world right now.
Don't forget my song at the end.
Right. Well, that's very interesting. Yeah, what are some opportunities you see out there for blockchain or Web3? Like, or what would you like? Yeah, maybe we'll just start with that. What are some real opportunities you see for applications where it really does add value? Obviously, it's limitless, but
It is limitless. But I'll tell you where I see it going.
Mhm.
What's happening now is a marriage. So first of all, let's define a marketing term. Brand. You hear it used all the time, but I don't know how many people keep getting it wrong. A brand is an emotion. between me and a company, me and a prospect, you and
Mm.
your vendor, you and your customer. You have a very strong brand, Kip. People meet you, they like you, they trust you. This has nothing to do with your credentials,
Uh-huh.
right? Like, well, how many placements have you done, and how many things have you done, and what are you charge? They get this feeling of trust when they meet you, and that emotion becomes very hard for a competitor to take away. Sure, someone can say, what, he's charging you X, I can charge you X minus, but that's negotiable.
Uh-huh.
But the ultimate feeling that you're giving is where this industry has to go. So I can build a brand for a company and protect a brand, or partner with a brand they already like.
Okay.
And where you see a lot of the Web3 companies going is, let me find an established, likable brand and be their partner and work with them. Kind of like Polygon trying to work with Starbucks.
Sure.
And you've got the established brand, you've got the trust. People know what they're getting. If you ever have a bad coffee at Starbucks, you tell them, they dump it out, they give you another one, right? There was a diversity claim against Starbucks. These three black guys were sitting there waiting for their friend. One wanted to use the bathroom. The Starbucks wouldn't let them do it. Starbucks said, that's it. Anyone can use the bathroom.
Uh-huh.
That's a disgusting thing to happen, and we're just not going to have it anymore. So they've really built and protected that brand. So imagine if I could be Starbucks' NFT player or
Uh-huh.
Starbucks. I talk to gaming companies. I think almost all the gaming companies are getting it wrong. They are going after individual users to join the game.
Uh-huh.
You know how expensive that is? Do you know why so many of them fail?
Yeah.
I mean, 99% of them are failing. We have a game and they show me the artwork, and then it's the robot, and the robot eats the chicken, and then the chicken goes to the bathroom, and then everything becomes a pizza, and it's beautiful graphics, and it's, Silicon Valley graphics. Spielberg couldn't do this kind of thing, but it cost them $100 to get a user. So how many users do you want? At $100 each, at 150 each, at 300 each. And what's the lifetime value of that user? I would say to a game company, that's great that you made the game. Why don't we take it to a corporation? Why don't we take your game of killing pizza pies with a mallet
Uh-huh.
and take it over to Citibank and say, you have financial products every day coming to you. Let's gamify the learning process for all your brokers and bankers to learn about
Uh-huh.
the, right? So today we're going to talk about a municipal bond in Chicago, 7%, no taxes, triple tax free. Great, boring as hell. Now we're going to gamify it. And these game companies have built the engine. They've already built that middle. All they're doing is changing the GUI.
Uh-huh.
It's a no-brainer. But they're stuck in their own way, saying, no, we have to get the 22-year-old. Well, everybody wants the 22-year-old.
Uh-huh.
Right? But imagine if you could get 50,000 people in a shot. Imagine I could go to Merrill Lynch and say, you guys are selling all these things. And you're not paying Merrill. You're
Uh-huh.
not paying a dime. That's going to be for the guy with the product. So some guy comes through with a cash withdrawal insurance policy, and you've got to train your thundering herd of 150,000 brokers how to use it, how to sell it. They'll pay for us to change the GUI. And then these guys can win prizes while they learn. So now you got a broker Sunday night playing the game, smashing the pizza with a mallet, and it becomes a chicken, and learning about tax advantages.
Uh-huh.
So it's that kind of thinking that has to come into the industry, and it's not really there.
Okay. That was going to be my next question. Do you see any gaming companies as an example embracing that? That's brilliant.
Yeah, no, very few. I've done this a couple of times with some of our companies, saying, I'm going to take you into the corporate world. It's a whole different world. It's not that sexy. It's
Is
not
that why
fun.
they don't do it?
Yeah. Everybody wants the same thing. They want a bunch of kids playing and concerts and big screens and beautiful women running around and champagne. They said it's not sexy. Yeah, I don't know, $250,000 a month revenue,
Right.
passive, is pretty sexy.
That is sexy.
And then you can still go after the committed.
Right. That can fund doing that.
Oh, yeah, right. Now you got some money in your pocket.
That's brilliant. That makes so much
For
sense.
those of you in TV land, that was for me. Remember.
How about maybe switch gears a little bit, just on leadership in your role as CMO, CRO, and leading people. You know,
Mhm.
what are some leadership lessons that you've learned or employed over the years that have been particularly successful, and whether leading salespeople, leading marketers?
Well, you know, there's no one great source of leadership. That's why there's so many books on it,
Hmm.
right? Good to great, and
So good.
half of these books have been written by people who've never led anyone.
Right. That's the
They've
interesting
studied,
thing.
right?
Right.
I mean, I'm in some international textbooks written by guys who've never done an international business, but they got my story. So because of my age now, because I'm a senior guy, I can say to a younger coworker and be more paternalistic and say, if you work for me in marketing, it'll be the equivalent of getting an MBA. I'm going to explain exactly why we're doing things. I'm going to show you where you fit into the mosaic, particularly with millennials.
Uh-huh.
They need to know exactly where they fit into the mosaic, and how what you're doing influences the bigger picture. And management is an iterative process. This is what I want you to do. What do you think you can do? What do you think you can add? Where do you think you want to go? I don't understand why leaders don't say, here's a career path for you.
Sure.
Our bonuses have to be magical and mystical. I can't stand the salary negotiations. The question I can't stand is, what are your salary expectations? Nothing. I don't work there. Nothing. But to me, there's a manipulation there. Just tell me what the role pays.
Right.
Right? Hey, Bill, we've got an opening. It's $250,000 a year. There's some equity. Tell me that. Are we really playing the used car game? Whoever names a number first loses. Do you
Uh-huh.
think you're that much smarter than me? Really? I mean, I know I'm no Einstein, but I get that. I know that game. But there's a bad taste there. There's a dishonesty. There's a manipulation, right? A recruiter knows the role, and the recruiter knows the salary range, and a recruiter should tell you, and a hiring manager should be the same way.
Uh-huh.
So when I bring someone on, I usually tell them right away what it pays. This is the kind of money we're looking at. Now, maybe they can negotiate up, maybe I can negotiate down. Maybe they don't have all the skills. Maybe they're better than I thought they would be. Maybe there's other things we can do for them, like tokens, equity, time off, perks, health club memberships. The biggest perk you can give a young person is education.
Yes.
If they're in it and
100%.
worried about the money, you got the wrong person. 20s and 30s, they should be drinking up knowledge as much as they can get. Uh, the idea of job descriptions, I like them, but only as a framework. Because once you get into the job, you see that it has to change. And that's, again, a living thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we just found out our biggest client is now Chinese. So understanding Chinese culture and learning some of the language and going to China is now in the job description, right? We have to add that. Salespeople, the mistake everybody makes with salespeople is they don't answer the two questions. And there's only two. How much money do I make? How many leads do you have? That's it. The product is secondary.
Uh-huh.
It really is. If I came to you, Kip, right now and said, I got 1,500 leads a month coming in that I can't service,
Huh.
deal closed for you would take an hour, you'll put $5,000 in your pocket. Do you really care what the product is?
Right.
It's like, wait, that's all. And people don't know that because the people managing salespeople aren't salespeople themselves.
Uh-huh.
And then once you have a salesperson, you have to find out what they need. And that's marketing, collateral, money for trips, support. If they have a question, someone can answer it, someone can help them. Co-selling, I'll go with them. They really need to be left into that mentality. And when they bring back information from the marketplace, they need to be rewarded for that.
Uh-huh.
Hey, it's too expensive, Kip. I'm trying to sell your KIP search and I can't. I mean, you want way too much money. That can't be you saying, stop whining. That has to be saying, okay, what are we learning? How many, who have you talked to? How many people? Right? Are we going after the right person? Maybe you are right. Maybe we are too expensive, but that's rewarding material and you're getting it for nothing to bring that back. Now, it could be they are whining and there's plenty of whining going on. That's why I have a strict no whining policy.
Uh-huh.
There's a sign on my door, the beatings will continue until morale improves. But a salesperson is a very different animal. And if you get someone hungry and who doesn't dabble in it, and that's what they do, and they do it all day. And you know what? You can call it sales.
Uh-huh.
It's not a dirty word.
Right.
The thing
Right.
you're going to see today has been sold. From the flag on your wall to the sign in your back to the microphone you're talking to,
Uh-huh.
to the computer you're on, somebody sold that. It's not a dirty word. Oh, we do client development and relationship development.
Yes.
The thing I'm seeing, and I sound like a really old guy when I say this, but I'm seeing this with the upcoming generation is people don't want to sell.
You're 100% correct.
They just don't. They don't want to go out and scratch out the business and bring it in, which is an art.
Yes, it is.
It's an art. And when I have a sales force, and I had a pretty large one at one point, I would say to my sales force, if you don't want to sell today, don't sell today. Go see a movie. Go skiing, right? Go kiss your wife. Go kiss your husband.
Uh-huh.
Pet your dog. I don't need you in the field cranky. And you're working really hard. You know, the appointment is just the tip of the iceberg. You know, we work hours and hours to get that appointment. So if you're not in the right mood, take some time off.
Mm-hmm.
Because salespeople are really actors and actresses.
Huh.
Right? I mean, I don't want to use you as an example because it'll embarrass you. Let's use somebody else. Some guy named Ship Schnipple.
I know that guy.
You have to be on.
Uh-huh.
You have to be interested. Right? And I think that's who you are. But there's a lot of people that are not interested, but they have to feign it.
Yeah.
Oh, really? You play golf? Well, that's fascinating. Yeah. Oh, well. You have a dog named Snooky. Oh, that's amazing. Really, 3 kids, one of each? Okay, that's really right. Oh, yes, please blow your cigar smoke in my face. Yeah, it's very refreshing. No, I'd love to watch you eat. Let's definitely go to lunch because watching you, power down a fillet of flounder, but we have to do that.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that joke was hysterical. Why did the chicken cross the road? Never heard that one before. So, but we are actors and actresses,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to be on. We have to be pleasant.
Uh-huh.
Salespeople, I always say one thing: what's the best sales tool in the world? And I always say, this is it. I brought it with me, pen and paper.
Uh-huh.
I sell, I write, I take notes, I read back the notes. Not only am I understanding the client, not only am I getting the ammunition I need for the clothes,
Uh-huh.
for the clothes,
Right.
coffee closers, but I'm also sending you a message. What you're saying, Kip, is so important. I'm writing it down.
Right.
Yes, Kip has a dog named Wookie. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So training is a key thing with managing people.
Mm-hmm.
And what I see in sales training is like a once a year thing, as opposed to a once a month thing. I mean, it's an art. It has to be perfected. It has to be added. You have to keep learning. Someone said to me, do you really want to be a doctor, Bill? You're going to have to be learning the rest of your life. Well, you do it too. I mean, we all do it now.
Mm-hmm.
You're reading the periodicals. You're creating the periodicals.
Uh-huh.
I wrote this book. It's a bestseller. I sold a copy to Susan Best. But I call it Without a Strategy because so many companies I work with don't have a strategy.
Uh-huh.
They haven't done this one thing. This isn't the Magna Carta. It's fairly thin.
Uh-huh.
But what are you trying to do? Who are you going after? How are you going to do it? What are you going to spend? How are you going to measure it? What are your goals? Goals are numbers. Think of hockey goals.
Mm-hmm.
People, sales, turnover, market share, cost. What are your objectives? state of being, the best, the biggest, the coolest, the funnest. So I have to put people through that process of figuring out just what their strategy is. And the worst thing you want to do is start hiring marketing and salespeople, and there's no strategy.
Right.
You know, we've got 700,000 Facebook likes. Okay, was that the strategy? Did anyone turn into money?
Uh-huh.
Did anyone buy anything? I sat on this panel 2 weeks ago with all these marketing guys, and they all had the big names on there.
Sure.
Right. And of course, as you know, I went to Harvard.
Mm-hmm.
I was only there for a weekend, but I did go, you know, and I posted nice campus. I'll tell you about my time at Yale Medical another time, but well, sucks. And the question came out, how do you know when your marketing campaigns are effective? How are you measuring? And everybody's giving me these long MBA, well, customer acquisition, growth, user, 240Z, dime cap, aspirin. And I'm saying when they buy something.
Uh-huh.
If we can track that they bought something because of what we did, we know it works. If they bought more, it works better.
Right.
And I talk like a street fighter.
Uh-huh.
Let's make it simple. Why are we making this so hard? Don't snow me with the terms. I know all the MBA terms. I got it. MBA. I've got 2 in my car if you want one. But let's have some, right? And when I speak in very plain English. When I speak to people who don't speak English as a first language, I realize they're doing me a favor. So I use very simple terms, right? Because they're helping me. You know, I actually got stuck in a conversation where I was speaking Chinese, and I was working back, and the guy made fun of my Chinese. I said, well, we can move to English anytime. I'm ready. You know, I think I accidentally ordered the egg foo young. I could have been wrong.
Uh-huh. How about just like salespeople, interesting in our business. That is a whole different animal. What are your strategies or your approach to attracting and retaining like high performance leaders, high performance sales leaders specifically for organizations? How do you find them and keep them and motivate them and grow them? And
yeah. And
that seems to be the toughest.
It is. Finding them is easier than keeping them.
Okay.
I always tell this to people. Salespeople are different than sales managers. Management kind of likes a little more power, and salespeople like accomplishment. And the worst thing you can do to a good salesperson is make them a manager. It's a horrible thing because that's a different skill set. And managers do a lot of paperwork. Salespeople hate paperwork. They detest it. You have to make sure the salesperson has the tangible and the non-tangible. So tangible, money, travel, perks, vacation, benefits, stock, right? That's really tangible stuff. And that's the kind of thing you see in a contract. That's the kind of thing headhunters talk about, as opposed to the non-tangible. Is there a target on my back? Are you going to understand when I don't succeed? Are you going to help me? Are you going to give me the support I want? Are you going to give me the attaboy when I do well? Are you going to, say, what can we learn from this salesperson? Are you going to give me some status? Are you going to help me become a superstar? If I don't understand something, can I take a course in it? If there's a conference I think I have to be in, and well, how much business are you going to bring back? Well, that's the common question asked by the CFO, and it's a good question. But sometimes you have to say, let's forget the ROI. People would say, well, what happens if you train these people and they leave? I said, well, what happens if you don't train them and they stay? That's even worse.
Right.
So the intangibles I find are very, very important. The number one tangible is money. That's it. And they'll go to where the money is. And the comp plan has to be written to have the activities that you want that help them make the most money, but satisfy the corporate goals.
Sure.
There was a sales comp plan I looked at where they would get 20% on a new sale. but they would get nothing if the client stays. That would go over to account services.
Okay.
It would drive very hard to close the deal, and then the client would leave within a year.
Mm-hmm.
Salesperson didn't care, right? And why I wouldn't.
Right.
Boss said, these people need to care. I'm like, why should they? They're not being paid to keep the client. They're also not being paid to do prostate surgery. I mean, so they don't care about that either.
Uh-huh.
They really care about getting that 20% off the top. Now, you want to change the comp plan to say you're getting 10% off the top and 5% a year for 2 years. We can play that game. There's a whole bunch of things you can do to modify so that they at least check in with the clients and find out what the problems are.
Do you, I'm sure there's no specific answer
Wait a
to
second.
this.
Can we pause for a minute?
Sure. Yeah, you bet.
I want to get some water.
Yeah. Hang on one sec. All right, we're back. So my question was, I'm sure there's no specific answer, but in your experience, what's the best? Because I get this question all the time about comp plans for salespeople. You mentioned 20% off the top and then nothing, or 10 and then 5. What is there a ideal for high performance salespeople way to structure comp where you want to win business, but you want to keep it?
Sure. Well, the first thing that has to happen is a salesperson needs to walk out of a closed deal and know how much she earned. If they can't do that, the comp plan is too complicated. And I have seen comp plans that are 20 pages long with bonuses and caps, and we look at 90 days and then we pay 60 days later, where you need an accounting degree just to figure out when you get your commission. It doesn't make any sense to me that it's difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And when I see something like that, I say, well, why is it difficult? You're making it difficult deliberately. Now, why? Are you trying to trick me? I mean, and trust is a very big deal. Salespeople are in a triangular relationship. Picture you're a kid and there's mom screaming one thing and dad screaming the other. Well, that's exactly what happens with salespeople. There's the client in the market screaming one thing, and there's the boss saying we can't do it, and we want it in purple. We can't do purple. We tried purple. Purple stinks. No, but they want purple. And you're sitting there. Suddenly your marriage counselor just trying to make a deal. So transparency is key. Complexity has to be non-existent. Then you have to arrange the comp plan to what you want. So if you have strong customer service teams that can keep a client, or an account manager that's actually diligent, maybe the salesperson doesn't get paid on that. But maybe there's a trial period though, right? We'll pay you, but if you lied, I'm not paying you for 90 days.
Right.
You can do that kind of thing. Cutting territories, forget it. That's the kiss of death. You cut my territory, I cut your job. Oh, you've done so well, right? That doesn't help either.
Right.
So the comp plan is key, and there has to be a balance of base and upside, depending on what the company's goals are. Right? Is this a very long-term sale? Like I got a bank to use blockchain. That was 18 months.
Sure.
I mean, the commission was minor, right? I have a base salary doing that, and I had 30 deals like that going.
Yeah.
So they had to reward me up front for the base and give me, a hit on closing. But, putting a bank on blockchain, you got like 35 people involved on the deal, and they all need to be paid. The commissions that are too big sends a signal to me, which means you ain't got no money. You're hoping to get my pay out of futures, which all companies do, right? I mean, AT&T's got 1 million employees, and they say, the more people that subscribe, we can pay our staff. But when you sit there and say, I'm going to give you a very small base and a very large upside, you're telling me you have no money. Now, tell me you have no money, and then I can make a real decision.
Sure. Yes.
Right? It's like you want to get married, you love your wife, but you say, you know what? I'm going to have a girlfriend. And she can say, I don't accept that.
Right.
but she can make a real decision,
Yes.
right? And she says, I want to marry you, Kip, but I have to go on opera season for 9 months a year. You can make a real decision. So arm me with the truth and say, this is what our situation is. We don't have enough to give you a huge base. And I'll say, fine, tell me about leads, right? Leads,
Uh-huh.
leads, we all want. Cold calling, I'm so old. Have you heard of Abraham Lincoln?
I have heard of Abraham Lincoln.
Okay, so he was in law school with me. So and Susan B. Anthony actually was
Oh,
one of my first dates.
oh, you've lived
So,
quite a life.
but I sold back in the days of cold calling.
Uh-huh.
Here's a bunch of index cards. Go cut a deal. Find them, approach them, close them. And by the way, just for your pain, we're going to give you very little money. Just to even out the score so that you're really miserable. Best training I ever had. You can do anything after that.
Sure.
But now it's very much, where are the leads? Where is the marketing department producing leads? Where are the conferences we're speaking at, right? What PR are we doing? What advertising are we doing? These are the kinds of questions a high performer is going to ask right away. They may ask about career paths. They may say, where do I go from here? Where do I go from here? I have a friend who sells copy machines for Canon. And he now has 2 clients. Each one's over $1 billion.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
where he wanted to go.
Yeah.
Right? Didn't want 7,000 clients. He wanted 2 clients. He knows the personalities well. They're worldwide clients. And that's what he deals with. And that was part of his career path. This is where I want to end up in the process. Internally, salespeople are kind of hated.
Uh-huh.
Operations and sales hate each other more than marketing and sales.
Uh-huh.
A good salesman shouldn't be at the office.
100% agree with that. Yes.
And they go out to lunch that's paid for, dinners that are paid for. They go to conferences, and some of them are in quite interesting places, Vegas and Denver and LA and Singapore. That's very sexy. That seems very glamorous. It's exhausting. You and I know that, right?
Right.
There's nothing sexy about it.
No, there isn't.
But the operations people stuck behind a computer, stuck in customer service, they say, wow, what do you really do? I used to work on a sales force, and they'd say, well, let's take one of these operations people and put him on an appointment with a salesperson so they can see what the salespeople do.
Yes.
And I said, if they really want to see what I do, let them sit next to me at the phone for 9 hours trying to get that appointment. Because that appointment's the tip of the iceberg. I've got
Right.
a suit on, we're having coffee, I'm cracking
Yes.
jokes, I'm taking notes, I'm closing deals, I'm being funny, right? That's the fun part,
Right. Exactly.
right? How many calls do you make to get a lead, Kip?
A lot.
And how many times do you hear no? Go away.
A lot.
How about the freezing of the position? You've ever been in that position?
Oh, yeah.
Talking to guys like me, Will, they love you, they need you. Oh, they're putting the position on hold.
Right. And in our business, I mean, it is, I mean, not that every isn't, but it's humans and all the crazy things that happen with human beings on both sides, on the client side and the candidate side. It's unbelievable. Like I won't say we've seen it all, because I'm sure there's something else crazy out there coming, but we have seen unbelievable things that are just shocking. And it goes with all of sales. It's like time kills every deal, no matter how amazing it is. Time always, and I just pound this into my team, time kills deals. You need to keep the momentum going, keep things moving forward, no matter how great both sides love each other. Given enough time, it will die.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good point. And that's where marketing comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, I can set you up with a toolkit I have of hundreds of pieces of collateral. Hundreds.
Uh-huh.
And so what I believe in doing is giving salespeople tools that don't say, hey, hire me, right? Here's a book I'll send you. Here's another one I'll send you. Here's a video I'll send you. All of my marketing collateral is really about solving a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So I might send this YouTube to somebody as opposed to hire me. I'm the best there is. And, hire Kip and, we're great. No, here you are, two, established professionals talking about business problems. Maybe you'll
Right.
get something out, right? And that's what collateral has to be, so that you have something to send people. My least favorite words in the subject of an email are checking in.
Right.
Well, let's look at that. When you tell me you're checking in, you're creating a problem for me.
That's exactly it. Yes. Yes.
Right? As opposed to, Bill, I found an article, you're going to love it. It's about bad headhunters in the blockchain business.
Uh-huh.
Found, 7 ways your headhunter can rip you off.
Uh-huh.
15 mistakes your marketing guy is going to make. 3 reasons you don't want anyone under 40 to be your CFO. Something that actually helps your business.
Right.
Because I'm a bit of an entertainer and I'm a marketing guy, I try to make it in an entertaining way.
Uh-huh.
I just did the Brooklyn view of blockchain, where I explained blockchain with a Brooklyn accent.
That's awesome.
And I sent that to people. I have a white paper. It's on my LinkedIn called No More Lies, Tokenize. And it explains tokenization, but I did it with a New York voice. I didn't do a white paper, which no one wants to read. The guy who
Right.
wrote it doesn't want to read it. I did a position piece to try to make it fun, try to
Yeah.
make it interesting, and to solve a problem. So that's where marketing really has to support sales. And if the top performer, which was your original question,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't see that, they won't stay.
Mm.
They say, I'm all alone. And, when I sold in New York, I realized there was no money in my office. All the money was in the client's offices.
Uh-huh.
And my sales manager, who I'll never forget, as the worst sales manager ever, said, you're not in the office enough. And I said, well, put a revolving door there so that the clients can just walk right in, because
Yes.
I don't see any in the office.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but people are upset. People are upset because they're not selling anything. They're not upset at me,
Right.
right? They're just taking it out on me. There was a company called Lanier, which faithfully went out of business. It was written up In Search of Excellence. It was the 3rd biggest computer seller in the country at one point.
Uh-huh.
They didn't have desks. They had phone booths.
Uh-huh.
You didn't have to pay if you were a sales guy, but you stood. There's
Yeah.
a little tiny table for your notes, and you stood there and you made your calls, and then you were out.
That's an interesting concept.
Yeah. So your top sales performer, they're really going to be considering money, leads, support, and the intangible can go a very long way.
Yeah. So how do you and you obviously have touched on this, but once you've got them, what are things that you can employ to ensure their ongoing growth and their development as salespeople?
Part of their job is teaching the company.
Mm.
And that's actually a kind of a status thing for a salesperson, where they come back and say, this is what we're learning about the market. This is what and implementing what they say, right? I mean, instead of them just pontificating, actually listening, we can actually make that improvement. We can change that. We can build that collateral. We can, make it purple if that's what they really want. That's a can of spray paint, whatever.
Uh-huh.
So that they feel that they're being listened to. And that's the problem that you see with most people in the world. They just don't feel they're being listened to.
Right. Absolutely.
Look what's going on in politics in America. No one's listening to the other side.
Right. And
it's hard to. But if they felt they were being listened to, they might soften up a little bit. They might. It's I don't know, we're a little too cultish here in this country now.
Uh-huh.
We don't want to digress and go into that. But the intangibles, the thank you for the business. Thank you for bringing in the business. I know how hard it is to bring in the business. Remember, they're actors and actresses. They're putting on a mask and a face the second they get on that phone. And they're trying to stay in very high energy. So I went to work for a company. They had a sales guy. He was so good. And my CEO said, how will you manage him? I said, I'm going to give him a hot towel and a cookie. He doesn't need managing.
Uh-huh.
The 4 words that people need to learn how to say is, how can I help?
Yes.
That's all I'm going to ask him. How can I help? You're doing so well. what do you need from me? And he told me, he said, Bill, I need a book. We need a book on this company. I don't think anyone's going to read it. I said, got it. Done. We'll take care of it. I want a popcorn machine. Take care of that too. I mean, how can I? And you have to think that way. So there's a term, it's so overused, Kip, servant leadership.
Right.
It's nauseating but it's true. It's the reason it's
Yes.
overused is that it makes sense. I don't beat someone up over their numbers. If a salesperson can't hit their numbers, there's a problem. And it might not be this problem with the salesperson. It might be our comp plan. It might be our offer stinks. It might be our prices too high. It might be economies, down the drain. There's a million reasons they don't hit their numbers. So it would be my job to help them hit their numbers. I've got a lot of money and time and aggravation poured into this asset of a salesperson.
Yeah.
Let's maximize it. Let's make sure. Tell me the problems you're having. Well, I don't have enough leads. Leads again. Or, right. Or, we're too much like the other competitors, or no one's ever heard of us. Or can you let them try it free for a while? I mean, SaaS is one of those things. I always looked at software and said, okay, who's better at this than me? How about Bill Gates? Maybe you heard of him. Probably amount to something someday. He gave away software.
Yes, he did.
Take it. Use it. Enjoy it. I mean, companies should do that kind of thing regularly. And they should try to really get on the side of the table of the client. To the point where I would actually get up and move seats. So we're at a table and I'm across from you, and then it's like, I get this comment all the time. My sales force can't sell. And I'll get up and I'll sit right next to the client and say, okay, that's a problem. Let's put it in front of us. Now it's both of our problems. Now let's talk about ways to fix it. So getting into that trusted advisor status, a salesperson's a problem solver. They really are. And an older salesperson, and I always say this, I'm out there interviewing and talking for jobs, and some of them have been in sales. And they say, well, gee, we're looking for someone, who's 26 years old. I said, that's a kid with a product. I can sit down with a CEO and talk to her about business, or a CFO, talk to him about business. It's a different sale.
For sure.
I get it. Snickers bars, but we're selling solutions that get ingrained into your service, into your chain, into your network. So you want someone who's seen the kind of business problems you're seeing. Like, great, Bill, blockchain's great, and I get what it does, but I got to pay all this money to have people trained, right? That's a problem we have to deal with. What's the cost? I always ask a question. I've been asking this question for 25 years. 3 people knew the answer. My question is, how much does an employee cost you per minute? I always ask that question. Because then my sales tool becomes a spreadsheet. So it takes some of these, everyone's trying to get developers onto their thing. Selling to developers, developers, and they're all selling the same thing. Interoperability, scalability, ease of use. They're all selling the exact same thing. And I don't care who they are, right? But no one's selling it as a financial argument. How much does a developer cost? $300 an hour. Okay, how much is that per minute? Well, $5. No, it's not. Are they using any real estate? Are they paying any benefits? Are you paying any taxes? Maybe it's more like $750. Now, how many hours did it take to work on, I don't know, the Ethereum platform versus our platform, which do a third of the time? So that's $40,000 versus $17,000, say.
Yes.
How many developers do you have? How many ways do you want to win? I'm going to add, you give me the numbers. No, Bill, you're wrong. It's actually $4 a minute. Great. Put that into the spreadsheet. So you're spending X, I can do it for 1/5 X. Training time will be 1 time X. You make money, project 1. Are you interested? Right. As opposed to, we're more scalable. Everyone's more scalable. We're interoperable. Everyone's more interoperable. Solana has done amazing things. Amazing things. And it's fast and it works. And the fast part is a big deal. Everything works, but it's fast. And that's changed a lot of lives. And that's why they become so popular. But
Uh-huh.
Solana did something else. They partnered with Shopify.
Mm-hmm.
I told you, let's connect with a big brand,
Yes.
right? I mean, no one heard of Solana. Our community has, but
Uh-huh.
everyone's heard of Shopify.
Right.
So that type of thing. Let's bring in a big brand. Let's work on speed and accuracy. And is the software better? Probably, but that's not what I'm buying.
Uh-huh.
Right? I'm buying the brand. I'm buying the quickness. Is it hipper? Yeah, they're saying that Rust is hip. It's cool.
Uh-huh.
Developers want to work on Rust.
Uh-huh.
Okay, well, that's Solana, so that works too. But you see, all of that, very little is about the actual product.
For sure.
Yeah, and more about the benefit of it. And that goes back to our problem in the space. Everyone is telling me about the product. This is an iPhone. I have no idea how it works. I know I push the button and I'm on with Kip.
Uh-huh.
Push the button, I'm on LinkedIn. I push the button, I can see my stocks, right? I push the button, I can see my photos. But if you ask me how heavy this is, what's in it, processor, compressor, even storage, I don't care. It's all stored in the cloud.
Right.
I just get the benefit. It's a telephone, it's an iPod, it's a camera, it's a calendar, right? How does it work? Who cares? And I get into this. And when I interview, even when I interview for jobs,
Mm-hmm.
they put me through these tech meetings where they're trying to grill me on the tech. And I don't want to say I don't care, because I do, if I'm going to market it, but
Yeah.
the customer doesn't care,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they never will. Yeah, there's a community of developers that are going to ask these questions, these in-depth development questions, which I'll never be able to answer, and no one can answer, and the answer keeps changing, and because
Uh-huh.
tech. But really, is this easier to work with? Can I do more quickly? And that benefit, that's cleaning supplies. Do I scrub my toilet less if I use your soap, right?
Uh-huh.
Do I get less maintenance and time at the shop if I buy your electric vehicle? Do my shoes last longer if I buy these? These things haven't changed, and they're never
Right.
going to change.
Uh-huh.
Instead of this constant, well, here's the tech, and it does this and this and the latest, and. So my advice to your listeners and viewers would be, first of all, get better looking guests on the show. That's the first thing I would say. Get someone whose head doesn't shine into the mic. Is focus on the benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Focus on how this solves my problem. Back in sales school, they taught us no problem, no sale.
Right.
What problem are you solving? Who's the customer? Customer's your fan, finance authority need. What's his or her problem? What's our solution, and why is it better?
That is a perfect way to end this. I thank you so much. This has been fascinating, educational, entertaining, funny. I really appreciate your time. This has been fantastic. Thank you
I
so
hope you
very
like those.
much.
I hope you like those jokes. I just bought them.
You can tell you got that comic background for sure.
Yes. Yes. If you think I'm funny, you should hear what my wife says. You're hysterical. Sleep in the garage.
Well, good. Well, thank you so much. Again, I really do appreciate it. This has been fantastic and covered a lot of things. So thank you. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Kip.
All right.